Welcome to my new series, Eastern versus Western Beauty, where we don't necessarily pick a winner, but we discuss global trends, product performance, and potentially discover some under-the-radar beauty. Today we're going to be comparing the WakeMake Glow Contouring Palette to the Dior Backstage Glow Face Palette. What struck me about this is not only do they look very similar, but there's a pretty large discrepancy in pricing here, with the WakeMake retailing for $28 and the Dior Backstage palette retailing for $48. Now, first and foremost, I'm just going back and forth between the comparable shades, starting off with the bronzer, which for the WakeMake palette, I was definitely dipping back into the pan to get the pigment to show up on my skin tone. Now, while there's obviously a visible difference in pigmentation, I actually preferred the WakeMake palette because I felt like it looked more natural on my skin. Now, moving on to the blush color, this is where I felt like the Dior palette really shined because this color is just absolutely beautiful, and the WakeMake blush color just really didn't show up on my skin. I had to dip back in quite a few times, and I was really getting more of a highlight from that blush color. Now, moving on to the actual highlight, we're starting off with the golder tone. I thought this was pretty close between both of them. Both of them gave a very beautiful sheen. Nothing ultra glittery, but just a nice shine on the top of my cheekbone. So I loved how both of these looked. Now, moving on to that white toned highlighter, I was running out of cheek real estate, so I decided to use these on my inner tear duct. Both of these were beautiful. Honestly, no complaints here. They gave a nice bright pop of white to the inner tear duct, went on really nicely, and I thought they looked very comparable. So here's a closer side-by-side of what the palettes look like on my skin. Now again, I do think these look very, very different, but both of these are very pretty, and I think the Dior one would be really great for those who really love a strong blush color. Honestly, this was a little too strong for me. I found especially that bronze color looked a little too harsh on my skin tone. I could have probably applied it with a lighter hand, but I just felt like the WakeMake palette was a little bit easier for me to control. I will say though, the blush was really lacking for me in that WakeMake palette, and you can see side by side, Dior palette was much more pigmented while the WakeMake palette was a bit more subtle. True to cream beauty trends of the moment, I feel like the WakeMake palette is more designed to enhance your natural features, while with the Dior palette, you get more pigment, more pops of color, and a stronger look.